Well, welcome, folks. I see a bunch of people joining the webinar. Thanks for spending time with us today. I'm Brandon Bruce, one of the founders of Uncat, and I'm joined here by one of our great customers, Helina Patience, up in Canada, as well as our friends at ApprovalMax. Alex Keselman, Natalie Campos is here, and my colleague, Jason Hubbard. So thank you all for coming. One of the things we like to do at the kickoff, just to have some fun, is if you go to the chat, if you wouldn't mind entering in where you're from, favorite flavor of ice cream. Sometimes people say whether they're a dog or cat person, but I'm with Uncat, and so all of us are cat people today. But you're welcome to put that in too.
No,
But
I'm definitely a dog person.
yeah.
Two dogs.
All right, Alex, you got it out of the way. Fair enough. I'm a dog person too. I like, and I have two cats, so yes, all of the above. All right. I gotta think of what my current favorite ice cream flavor is. I'm an ice cream lover, so it's a lot. I think I'm gonna go with that.
Definitely pralines and cream. It's the best.
Is that the best?
Oh yeah.
Mine is caramel. Always caramel.
All right, Mary's in from Rogers, Arkansas. Fantastic. And chocolate, just straight. I often get that too. Brian's from Jersey. Laura from Amherst. Coffee ice cream. Cat person. I thought for a second that was all one flavor of ice cream. So I was like, coffee, ice cream, cat. Like, uh-oh. But no, cat person. Me too. And dogs, like we talked about. Houston and Rocky Road, Sherry. Awesome. Thanks for being here. I'm in from Knoxville, Tennessee. Current favorites, Cherry Garcia. Like I went back to, I mean, it's been out there since forever, right? But I kind of went back old school to the Vermont ice cream, and it's pretty great. So kudos to those folks for still doing it. Kim's from Spokane, peanut butter cup. That's what I had a couple days ago. It was in a churn though. We have a local creamery here in Knoxville that churns it up. It's pretty great. All right, Jerry, Northern Virginia. I'm curious which part of Northern Virginia. I used to live in Roslyn on the orange and blue line, and now also the silver line. Pretty great area. Butter pecan. All right, there's your pralines and cream from Helena. Cats. Cats. Okay. And Alex with dogs. All right. And caramel. I like it. Yeah, so this is like caramel mixed in, or is it caramel flavor, or both?
Actually mixed in, like the
Mixed
actual
in.
caramel
Yeah.
poured over the ice cream.
Totally. And if you keep describing it, it's gonna make me feel hungry because it's like
I'm actually really
mid-afternoon.
like, I need it. I need an ice
I
cream
know.
now.
I hope we
Let's
don't
just
lose any folks on the webinar. Everyone's gonna bail and go get ice cream. We should probably send out little gift cards or something.
Oh, I thought we were delivering ice cream to everybody, aren't we?
Oh, dang. Right. Does everyone here have DoorDash or Uber Eats? That would be cool. That was a very like pandemic thing to do. I do remember a couple webinars during pandemic where it was like, all right, everybody order your DoorDash so that your meal gets delivered in the next 30 minutes and we can all join for a call. It's kind of awesome. All right, Centerville, Virginia. Yes. Awesome. I used to bike there from Roslyn. It's a good ride. I think it was 100 miles round trip. Anyway, we digress. Joanna, Southern Utah. Utah is the home of the most national parks in the United States. A little factoid if you're into national parks. Anything chocolate with lots of things mixed in. And again, it says with lots of mix-ins, cats and dogs. Why choose? I hear you. 100%. There is no need to choose. This is not a competition. Our cats and our dog love each other. I think our dog thinks he's a little bit of a cat, and our cats play around like the dog. So it's all good at our house. Well, thank you all for coming. Helena, we're gonna let you lead the way here because she's the best and is super knowledgeable, and also was one of our mentors and guides through the Intuit Developer Growth Program that we were a part of. Now it's been about a year and a half, 2023, which was a great experience for Uncat. Helped us meet a lot of great people at Intuit and get us some good API advice and connections. So yeah, we're kind of going to run through 5 clever ways. We think they're clever. You be the judge to get financial information without having to chase it up each month, or as we internally call it, chasing or herding cats, because that's what it sometimes feels like when you're dealing with a lot of clients that are busy running and growing their businesses. So Helena, I'll let you introduce yourself even more and take it away with the clever tips.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here today. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Helina Patience. I'm a CPA, CMA. I'm based in Victoria, as I mentioned, which is on the very tip of an island, just north of the Olympic Mountains, actually. We're probably closer to the Olympic Mountains than we are to Vancouver in BC, Canada. So I have a bit of a funny accent, that's why. And I own a firm called Entreflow Consulting Group. We've been around since 2015. A very nerdy group of people. I've got 23 employees across the country, and we do bookkeeping, controllership, and fractional CFO work with high growth companies. We have an HR practice that does HR management and recruitment. And then we have a bunch of software selection implementation people that do all of our onboarding, but also a lot of software implementation for our clients. So in order for us to do our CFO work, we try to get the bookkeeping compliance automated and streamlined as much as possible so that we don't have things slowing down our closes and stopping us from getting our forecasting done. So we've been, at the bleeding edge of technology since early days. So we were using QuickBooks Online back in 2015, which was an exciting time, and a lot of other third-party apps. So we're very, very we've got a very heavy app stack, and would love the technology to help us get to where we need to get to with our clients faster. And so, really today is to share with you some things that we do, some key things in order to save the hurting and the nagging and the headaches that slow us down. So I'm delighted to be here. And should we do some more intros for yourself, Brandon and Alex, before I kick off to the next slide here? Go, Alex, you want to go next?
Sure, absolutely. My accent probably is even funnier because I'm all across Atlantic in Europe, not even the regular Europe, I'd say, but in Eastern Europe, in the undeveloped side of the Europe. But yeah, I've been with ApprovalMax for almost 6 years now, and I'm a solutions engineer here at ApprovalMax. My main role is to hear to our customers, understand what are their challenges, trying to find the best solution or best workarounds to find that specific way how they can deal with different challenges and actually implement the ApprovalMax to their day-to-day business. So yeah, that's my role. Brandon, over to you.
All right. Well, I already talked already, so we need to get to the 5 tips, but I'll share a couple of things that don't necessarily come through Zoom. I'm 6'8", so I'm pretty tall, so I stick out at conferences like Intuit Connect. I'm easy to find. What else? Random fun fact, weird fact is 2 years ago, I ran into a bear on a bicycle ride. And it turns out not that many people have done that. So I'm one of the few. And bear was fine, so don't worry about the bear. They're stout. I broke my leg in 3 places, so that happened. But it turns out to be kind of a cool East Tennessee outdoorsy story. All right.
I hope you're friends now with that bear.
Yeah, right. I mean, we've got the same story, so we're sort of tied with that life experience now. Totally.
Imagine somewhere in the forest now, these birds telling the same story.
It's telling the same story. This huge, crazy guy came around the turn.
Okay, let's move on.
Anyway, yeah, to the tips.
All right, agenda. So we're going to start with a poll. We're going to do this old school in the chat today, just for fun. I'm going to go through some clever ways to get financial information from your clients. We got some awesome demos. So Brandon and Alex are going to do some demos for you as well. So if you're not super familiar with these 2 awesome apps, Uncat and ApprovalMax, you're going to see that in more detail. And then we'll go through the Q&A. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to pop them in there. We'll take time, try to answer them as we go too. So you don't have to save them all to the end. So thank you, Jason. There's your poll questions. Can you just pop in there in the chat, what accounts payable processes you find the most challenging? You can choose more than one if you like to. So got options are poor financial controls, sorting uncategorized transactions, long and protracted invoice approval process. I love those. Those make me very happy. Spending too much time on admin and client chasing, expense management, or anything else. So if you want to just pop some of your thoughts in there on what do you find the most painful getting W-9s. I agree with that. Give you guys a minute. Client chasing, I completely agree. It's enough nagging my children, but nagging my clients during the day is too much for me. The presentation, there's a question here about whether the copy of the presentation will be sent out later. Is that going to happen, Brandon? Don't you normally do?
Say that last question again.
Will the presentation be sent out after the
Oh,
recording?
yes. Yeah, we'll send both the deck and the recorded presentation out so that folks have a copy if you want to share it with your colleagues, etc. We'll get it out to everybody. We'll post it to social. It'll be on YouTube. We'll put it on the blog. All the good things.
Okay. And yeah, I'll read out some of these answers here. So expense management comes up a lot, long and protracted invoice approval process, chasing clients, spending too much time on admin and client chasing. A lot. Most painful is client chasing when they do not send invoices. We use a shared folder to bring the invoice into QuickBooks. That's great, but not fun chasing. Sorting uncategorized transactions, that's a big pain for people. Spending too much time on chasing clients. I have this theory with clients and chasing them on uncategorized transactions. A lot of my accountants in the older days would always send out spreadsheets with all the issues and expect the clients to complete the spreadsheet with all the information that they needed. And I feel like my clients have this like weird condition called Excel-itis, where they open up an Excel spreadsheet and then like their life falls apart and they don't know what to do with it. So we've always been looking for ways to avoid sending queries over email and Excel because they don't get back to us most of the time. It's not a documented condition, but it seems to happen with my clients. Uncategorized transactions and fixing short paid invoices due to sales tax not being paid. That's a fun one. Love that one. Felix saying hello from Montreal. Hi. And yes, that's a lot of these sounds like all of these things seem to be issues for people. And so hopefully, if I do my job correctly here, you'll have some tips on what to do going from here so that you don't have these pains in your day-to-day. Because at the end of the day, we want to do everything we can to deliver as much value to our clients and help them succeed in the world, because them succeeding in the world is going to help us succeed in the world. And us spending time chasing clients along the way does not deliver a whole lot of value for us and them. It needs to happen, but let's find a way to make it faster. Okay, let's move to the next one then. So if someone, thank you. So your first tip is data extraction. So gone are the days of having pieces of paper and we're manually entering things into the software. I used to be a financial, I didn't mention this, one of my fun facts, I used to work at Lululemon as a financial analyst, and I'm a nut for high data quality. I can't do my job as a CFO and an analyst if the data is crud. And so I've always focused so much with my team on automating the data as much as possible, because I know it's going to reduce the human error factor, and make sure that it's also getting my team to do higher value work as much as possible. That'll help them to develop into better and happier accountants as we go. So data extraction, when I first saw my first app, it was HubDoc back in the day, reading a receipt using the OCR to do the data entry. I was like in absolute shock that this was possible. It was like the best Christmas present ever. We've got lots of tools now that do data extraction. Brandon and Alex are going to show you what they can do on their end today. But having a system automatically read a receipt or bill and do the data entry for you is going to reduce your data entry issues a massive amount. So we rely on data extraction with all of our clients with all of the documentation. We want the source documentation at the transaction level. That makes it us audit proof. It makes it a lot easier for us to track and figure out what things have gone sideways. And so that's one key thing. And so in order for that to happen, you got to get the data from your clients in as easy as method as possible, without chasing them too much. Okay, so that's data extraction. Anything, Brandon or Alex, you want to add there?
It's actually just remind me about 20 years ago, back in my home country, back with the old desktop computer, I had a scanner and I've been using Ambifine reader. I think it was like 4.0, version 4.0. And at that time I was super impressed by the technology, how it can read the whole information. Though it was super slow,
Yeah.
very quite bad. But today's OCRs is just crazy. Support 70 plus languages, super fast, knows exactly where to map the information and where it's in which fields all that information should be added. So it's actually an amazing way not to waste your time doing all of that, routine work, type it in and all in.
That manual entry, not fun.
I mean,
Amendment?
honestly, the first question that jumped to mind would have been on behalf of my daughter, which is to say, wait, you worked for Lululemon and do you still have an insider discount? Because she would jump all over that.
No.
No, I wish I did. But no, in seriousness, right? Obviously, like it's a data world and so much is locked up, whether it's on paper and you need to get it into digital or it's just digital and that's just data. So how do you make it information? And usually the first step is to get it out, which is to say the extraction part. And that then starts the process of where you can begin to get smart about it, put it somewhere else, integrate it with something else, run AI on it, whatever it is, you got to get the data out from where it was before. So I think it was a good number one. It's a good place to start.
Number one. Yeah, it's definitely where we start our process. We get all of our stuff at the receipt bill level, and then that pushes into the accounting software. It's the first step there. Awesome. Okay, let's go to the next one. So approval automation. I love approval automation. I do not like manual automation. What I seem to find, what I see a lot of, especially with my probably really heavy with the inventory manufacturing clients and not-for-profits, notorious for this. A little bit larger organizations where they have approval requirements in place. They take up so much time for the team if they're doing it manually, like to have a piece of paper printed from somebody's email and then somebody reviews it, then they walk it over to somebody else and then they sign off on it and then they pass it to somebody else and get signed off and then it goes back to finance. When I worked at Lululemon, actually, because I work on the FP&A team, not the accounting team. So I felt bad for the accounting team. I go down to their office and they literally have like stacks and stacks and stacks of AP that they had to process where they were manually entering stuff in. They had to get all the signatures. It was just like anytime you had a question about a bill, it would take them a couple of days to track down the actual document. Like it was just crazy town. Hopefully they've figured that out in recent years here, but the whole process of that paper walking around the place, and especially with, a lot more companies going remote, trying to do that in a manual process, scanning things, it's just crazy. And so creating a system whereby the team can, get those approvals done automatically and quickly through a cloud-based system saves everybody a lot of time, because at the end of the day, you take a not-for-profit, for instance, not-for-profits are like, they've got a big mission. They're out there trying to do good work in the world. The last thing we want to do is steal their time on stupid, monotonous admin work when they could be going out and actually saving the world in some way, shape, or form, right? So any minute that we spend with our clients, whether it's for-profit or not-for-profit, is taking them away from either doing the good work or growing their sales. And so we've got to be really careful with their time and allowing them to have these processes in place, even though they've had them for years and everybody else does it. Potentially they shouldn't, but they do. It's important to push them to automate these processes, so it's not only more time efficient for us, but that it's actually helping them to run their businesses more effectively and do the great work. So just having some good streamline processes in place, it'll improve your internal controls, make sure things don't fall through the crack. Again, you're lowering your human error factor, and then just making it more time efficient for everybody to get on with the big things they need to do. So whenever we have approval requirements in place, we're automating that process. It's just kind of a no-brainer, especially when you factor and a lot of people get a little bit antsy about app costs and how that can add up, and that's another expense for the client, another expense for the firm. But when you factor in the time, your team's time, the client's time, that versus the software fees, it's a no-brainer, right? So for me, it's a must-have. I'm gonna pass it over to Alex. Do you want to add anything on this piece?
Yeah, absolutely. That is the bread and butter of ApprovalMax. And throughout these 6 years, I already got a whole bucket of different examples when companies were approaching us, asking like how we can help them to build a much smarter processes. And I was listening to their stories, and sometimes they were just too extreme. I have one great story. About 3 years ago, we had a customer who came to us. It's one of the largest agricultural company in Africa. So they're managing a lot of farms across the continent. And they have around 1,000 people across different countries. Farmers typically would maybe create an email that they need to purchase something for their farm. It will be sent to their supervisor, and then it goes through all of the ladder all the way to the top and then goes back. So by the time being, it typically takes them around 2-3 weeks to approve a single purchase order. And on a farm, that's already like, well, you cannot really manage your farm if you don't have that. If a single document is being processed within 2-3 weeks, they desperately wanted to change those things. So we've added very complex workflow. That's actually the most complex workflow I've seen so far throughout all of these 6 years. It's around 40 approval stages with multiple approvers, multiple levels on top of that. But once we've built that, we spend maybe about a week to build the whole workflow. From that time until now, there's still our client. The whole process, the time for the approval of these documents reduced from these 2-3 weeks to just a single day, or sometimes even less, maybe just a couple of hours, depending on the complexity of the workflow, where it should be going in different stages. And that's one very extreme example, but there are so many others. Construction companies where project manager is on the side, they need to purchase something. Again, they don't have access to the laptop. Now they can just raise the purchase order bill via mobile app, submit it to their project manager, and have it much, much quicker. So lots of things that you can automate and really, really save a lot of time with automation.
For sure. Brandon, you want to add?
Well, obviously, Alex and team at ApprovalMax are the experts in this because it's in their name. So I defer to them. What I will say, and I've heard plenty of these stories, we all have. Some of us have experienced this in real life. I start with a premise of, are approvals important? You don't need to automate something if it's not something that you need to do at all. You could just skip it. And it turns out without approvals, usually you get some pretty poor outcomes. So having approvals is necessary for sure. And then the question is, do you do them in a very methodical, manual way? To your point at the beginning, Helina, you can do it that way. It is possible. Lots of people do, but you start to get squeezed on the margins in terms of time. So can you add more clients? Is your team getting burnt out doing a process that they're sort of tired of doing? Does the client get burnt out absorbing that cost? And so can you automate it so that it takes the sting out of the process itself, since it is a necessary process? So yeah, obviously heard a lot of great comments at Intuit Connect and XeroCon about ApprovalMax because they're the best at that.
Yeah, for sure. And just to add to that, it's not only just the labor time that's the kind of opportunity cost there, but the book's not getting closed in real time and in a quick expedited way has huge financial risk and cost to the company. So if the leaders are not getting access to the details on how the company is going and how things might be changing and not given that information in time to make quick decisions, they're going to burn through more cash, right? So, and incur more expenses. And for example, I had a not-for-profit that they were very slow in getting their approvals sorted. They had a funding that was coming up to the end of the funding period, and anything that they didn't spend, they had to give back to the funder. And internally, because there were all these bills that were floating around waiting for approvals, in everyone's mind, they thought that they had spent most of the funding anyhow. But by the time they got all the approvals through, they had like $50,000 that they had to send back to the funder. That's almost a whole FTE wasted because they didn't have their approvals organized. And so, that had a huge impact for them because they had to pay that $50,000 back. But with, for-profit organizations, if you're not keeping track of how things are going on a regular basis and your books are delayed because you've got this wonky approval process in place, especially looking at like construction companies, that's a great example, Alex. If they're not getting that data into the books and tracking that, really real time, they might not bill their clients enough, and they might not talk to their clients soon enough to say, hey, we need to go into our contingency or charge you more, or get a change order in place in time. Trying to go back to the client after the fact for extra money because you went over budget is really, really difficult. But the second that you get into problems raising that with them, it's a lot easier to negotiate, right? So okay, cool, we'll move on to the next number 3. Oh, sorry, Alex, do you want to speak to this slide? Sorry, a little bit.
Well, it's like a minute for sponsors. Oh, basically, yeah. Later during the demo, I will show you, of course, the way it all works. But in brief, maybe explanation, what is ApprovalMax all about? It's an end-to-end solution allowing customers to build this financial control system, which later on bring us as a result of reducing time on approvals and making payments for these bills much quicker. So you won't be fined, you won't make a lot of mistakes. You'll have all in single one place for all of your approvals. Doesn't matter if we're talking about accounts payable or account receivable.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, number 3 is automatic audit reports. So, like I said, we like to be audit proof. We like to have the transaction stored at the backup documents stored at the transaction level. Love like how in QuickBooks Online, for instance, you can see the audit history. And you can see what's who's been doing what. But one thing that we also leverage is with regards to using ApprovalMax with our clients, we can see not only the source documentation when it gets pushed over to QuickBooks, but also the approval log. So who approved what when, so that we've got that as stored at the transaction level. Auditors that work on our files for our clients just love that because they can actually see that really easily in the details that get pushed over. Is there anything you want to add to that, Alex, just on how that works?
Sure. I think actually the audit reports are even maybe more crucial part than the actual approvers, because having just an approval system without any auditability of the process kind of misses the point, because some random people will be just approving things and have no idea if there was any changes, who made those changes, why they've made those changes, who exactly approved it at what time. It does not really give you a full picture of what is going on within the whole process. But by having audit trails, audit reports, workflow version history, request version history, all of these different tools just give you much greater visibility over the whole process, understanding what is going on, who is doing their work.
Yeah, for sure. And I like that it's not only just leaving it in ApprovalMax, but it's pushing it into QuickBooks as well. So I've had cases where we're, on a call with a client and, something's come up in the financials, they had a question about it. We were able to dig into the transaction, see the whole audit trail there and be able to answer the question live in the call without having to say, I'll get back to you about that. Because you know what happens with that? The whole conversation just fizzles from there, right? So it's great to have that at your fingertips. Okay, let's go on to number 4. So let's make it easy for clients to respond by sending a magic link. I can't tell you. I wish I could record and I think I talked to Brandon about this at QuickBooks Connect. I wish I could take a picture of my clients' faces when I talk to them about the magic link feature with Uncat because they love it. So, and I'm not sure if everybody here today has used Uncat before. It's awesome, but basically it's my automated nagging system for my clients. So basically, if we don't have a backup document for something, we send it to uncategorized expense. It shows up in Uncat. Then we can send it out to the client and they get a lovely link on their phone. We usually send it to their phone rather than to email because most of our clients have way too many emails to deal with. It does both, but they love the cell phone option. And then it has a magic link. So they click the link, go straight to the screen that they need to go to. They don't need to log in. They don't need to worry about another account to jump into, yada, yada. And then they can just give us the information from there. They can upload a picture, they can add some details, and it makes it really easy for them to just go and do it. And then on top of that, we can have the settings set so that it nags them on a regular interval. So if they're really bad, we can bug them every day if we wanted to, even on the weekends. That would be mean, but we might do it every once in a while. Or in spaced out intervals, depending on how good they are. We also will, sometimes set up Slack automation apps to send them Slack notifications and say, hey, we're still waiting. So we'll have the two, depending on how bad the client is, but those magic links make it really easy for us to get the list of things that we need from them easily and in a space where they can action it. And Brandon, do you want to add to that?
I'll simply add one. I love the graphic with the actual chain link. That's kind of cool. But the other thing I'll add is when we first launched Uncat, so rewind 5 years ago, in one respect, we thought we had built an app that simply helped people to reset their password. The clients struggled to remember their password, to reset their password so much that they weren't really benefiting from any time savings using the app itself. And we were like, this is not why we built this. So then going to the magic link where the client receives a notification, they click the link, they go straight in, answer the questions in the way that Helina just described, and then they can just leave and go straight back to building their business, which is what they really care about, right? So we're actually in the business of lots of apps, including social media and news sites, are really in the business of getting you to view as many pages as possible and spend as much time there as possible, which is great. That's that business model. For us, we're really interested in the client spending the least amount of time in Uncat as possible. Like, here are the transactions. We just need some quick answers. We need a few receipts. We need you to upload a few documents and then get out. And go build, right, and grow your company. So the magic link has principally been helpful with that. It certainly reduces on behalf of our customers, the accountants and bookkeepers, the number of requests that they get of like, hey, I'm having trouble getting in or with the software or whatever. And it instantly basically took our support down to zero the day that we launched it, because it was like everyone could just go straight in and make the update. So yeah, we've certainly seen it across our entire customer base, what you just described, which is that on the client side, it takes something that is not something that every business owner wants to do. Like, yeah, I want to tell you what I spent on my charge card last week, and makes it into less of a painful experience.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure this is probably obvious to everyone, but in case you don't know, so once the client has added the information, a note, or, you know, the document or categorization, once our accountants review it, they can sync it back to QuickBooks, and it updates the transaction in QuickBooks. So, you know, we don't have our team having to take that information and then manually put it in another system, and it just syncs back to where we need it to go. So it's super, super clean. And like I said, our clients love that it's just a text message that they've got to deal with. It's it's not clogging up their email. They can just deal with that right away. Awesome.
I haven't seen the way it all works, but I really love you guys for that, because sometimes it's so frustrating when you have to do a very simple thing, but then you're going through some kind of a wizard, many steps of just, completing a very simple thing. Just having it one single screen to do something, that's just amazing.
Magic. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, let's go to number 5, last one here. So send your clients a text message to cut through inbox clutter. So I think I talked to this a little bit already. So we had the magic link thing, but just the piece about, so because it is a magic link, I think, in the email as well, if I'm not mistaken, right, Brandon? Yeah. So then, but that extra cherry on top, if we go back to the ice cream here.
Cherry Garcia, that was mine. I win.
I can't believe there's an ice cream called Cherry Garcia. Like, I gotta find it. But just having to go through the text message, just makes such a smoother process for our clients. And like I said, you can set up those intervals of how often you're going to nag them. If you add more items in there, it'll, still update, and it makes it easy for them to answer your questions, essentially. So like I said, we're not sending out spreadsheets and email questions anymore. We're using Uncat to really get down to the transaction level and get those answers really quickly with our clients.
Yeah, I'll quickly add, just observationally on our side, it's just another way to reach the client. So sometimes the client just has a preference, like, hey, text me, it's faster, easier, I'll see it more. Semicolon, we also have plenty of firms where they're like, I can't reach my client. So never mind this notion of chasing a client, like I'll never catch them, because they don't really check their email, or they don't really use email in their business. They're on the manufacturing floor, or they're a restaurant, they're a chef, like they're just not in their inbox, especially if you're trying to open a spreadsheet. And so the text message was the necessary way to get in touch with them. And if we all think individually about our own usage of technology, we might skip some emails, some might fall through the cracks. We're pretty conditioned to check every text message and either reply to it or take action on it. We're all pretty good at that. And so it's definitely been a huge boost to engagement and adoption, is having the option to send through the text message.
Yeah. And then just from an accounting perspective too, like with the way that the process goes for us at our firm with using Uncat, is we're pushing the transactions from the bank feeds into Uncat and categorized expenses. And then that's getting picked up in Uncat. That means that while we're waiting for the backup documentation, we can still reconcile the books. So, we're still able to get on with other work, and it's not holding up the whole process while we're chasing documents. It's because we have a really quick turnaround. We've got to get, the controllers to review the books, and then the CFOs to get ready with for their client meeting around the 20th of the month. So we've got a really compact time. But the fact that we're still getting the bank feeds cleared out and the bank reconciliation done while we're still waiting for that documentation makes it a little bit easier for us from a workflow standpoint. Awesome. Okay, so I think I've done my 5 tips. Hopefully this is super helpful. Hopefully you picked up on some things you want to implement with your clients. Like I said, huge time savings, way better for, both of these apps are awesome for our firm. Not only saving my team's time, but also making it easier for our clients and helping with those, opportunity costs that they've been missing out on otherwise. So I'm going to pass it over to Alex. He's going to do a demo now of ApprovalMax for us.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So as I've said previously, just like a brief reference point of what is ApprovalMax in general, we are an end-to-end solution for establishing financial controls. I've seen from some of the participants, we have already a couple of clients here. Hi, Felix. How are you doing? But for those of you who don't know what ApprovalMax does and how does it work, We integrate both with Xero, QuickBooks Online, and Oracle NetSuite. So in case yourself or maybe your customers working with these accounting systems, we do support them. It is a third-party tool. Therefore, you will need to create your account. We offer you a 14 days free trial, so you can play with all the amazing ApprovalMax features and decide for yourself if the platform works for you or not. And then you can purchase a subscription or cancel the trial. So once you've created that account, you'll find a list of different QuickBooks Online, if we're talking about QuickBooks Online approval workflows, both for accounts payable and account receivable side. So you have separate workflows for your purchase orders, for bills, for expenses, for sales invoices, for onboarding new vendors, and for, of course, for journal entry workflows. The whole process starts within the workflow itself, and the beauty of these workflows, that even without having any technical background, even if you're just seeing this platform for the first time, it will take you maybe 5 to 15 minutes to build a workflow, pretty much any complexity. It always makes me laugh when I see people are asking, so how many weeks or months would it take for us to build the workflow that we want? It actually takes just a couple of minutes. Each and every workflow consists out of 3 major elements, which is creation or streamlining our documents into the system. So you can use our built-in OCR solution called ApprovalMax Capture. You can either email your bills into the system, or you can just drag and drop it here into the browser version itself, or you can just snap a photo with our mobile app and submit it for approval. The main part happens here within the approval stages, and that's where you can build your sequence of approval steps, add your approvers, and provide specific rules to them. So just to prove my word how easy it is to build these workflows, let's create a quite complex workflow. I want all of my bills to be approved, let's say, by the location managers, because I do have locations in my QBO account. If the amount of a bill is more than maybe £5,000, it should be also seen and approved by the relevant person from the legal department. And if the amount is more than maybe 20K, it should be also seen and approved by our CEO or CFO. So for that, I will just simply click on plus sign. It will create an approval step for me. I can easily rename that, say location managers, legal, and CEO, CFO. Simply add as many approvers as needed. And one great thing about ApprovalMax is that we do not charge you by the number of users. You can just take a whole list of all of your users, add them all in bulk to your system, and then decide where these users should belong to. So let's say Allison, Chris, and myself, we are location managers. Kate and Marco will be our legal department. And CEO and CFO, let's say it will be Tim and it will be Veronica. So with these steps, with these users, the only thing we'll need to do is to go and click on this table icon, which will take us to our approval matrix. And every column that we're seeing here, it's the data points from your QBO account. List of your vendors, category codes, product and services, locations, classes, customers, and projects, or you can simply build your workflow based on the amount thresholds. So since we have location managers, let's say all the bills from our Sydney's office should be approved by Allison, all the bills from our New York's office should be approved by Chris, and everything from London's office should be approved by me. For the legal department, let's add a couple of additional layers here. Everything that is over or equal to £5,000 should be seen by Kate and Marco, but only if category matches advertising and maybe subscriptions. Then it will go to Kate, and everything else except for advertising and market and subscriptions should be going to Marco. So you can easily create a rule category does not match and provide same set of values. And as for the CEO and CFO, let's simply create a rule. If it's over or equal to 20K, then these guys are involved in the approval process. Just like that, I think it took us about 2-3 minutes with all the explanation involved. We've already created quite a complex workflow. And of course, you can add more layers, more users, more rules on top of that. But what we've seen so far, that is the administration work. So that's what will happen when you're just creating your account. If you are an administrator of the account, you will be doing that work. For users, it's even easier. They can simply download our mobile app and they will find all of their requests awaiting their approval in just one single screen. Same here in the browser version, you have requires my decision screen where you will find everything that is awaiting your approval. So then you can just briefly take a look on the bills or expense reports or purchase orders that are awaiting your approval. See the details, match it with PO in case that's needed. You can communicate between your team members back and forth, knowing that everything is correct. And once you'll approve the bill, it will be then automatically sent to your accounting system with the audit report provided to you, showing you who created the bill, who approved it, under which approval stages, and at what time and date it was done. So that's in the nutshell the way ApprovalMax works. Let me stop sharing the screen, and I believe the next one would be the Uncat feature. Well, these are already features that I've described. Therefore, I can just pass it over to Brandon to talk about Uncat. So let me stop sharing the screen, pass it over to you, Brandon.
Unmuting, rock and roll.
Might be time for a good accounting joke as a transition break here.
Is it time? Okay. Let's see. What did the underperforming asset say to the other asset? I feel underdepreciated. Is that good? Okay.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
Sorry, everybody. Everyone had to sit through that one. That was the one that just kind of jumped to mind. That's the best one I've got. All right, cool. Let me share my screen and I'll give you a quick tour around Uncat. Many of you, I think, are familiar with Uncat already, but if you're new, this is our homepage, uncat.com. I was looking for an image that would kind of communicate the herding cats concept, and I found a cat riding a pony doing the herding, and I thought it was ironic and fun, and we like to have fun at Uncat. So there you have it. Like ApprovalMax, we've got a free trial. You're welcome to jump in, test out Uncat. I always say, and I run other software companies, the best way to test software is to test software. You know, get in, kick the tires, make sure you like it, make sure the process works for you. Make sure your clients like it, you know, get their feedback. Hey, did you like this better than receiving a spreadsheet? Almost uniformly, the answer will be yes, that was a lot easier to use. So here's where you can start your trial. What will happen is you'll create a little account with Uncat, and you can do that just by signing in to QBO, right? So it's a super easy trial start process. Choose the first client that you want to connect. And then when you come in, you will be able to create the settings for that client. So Uncat is a simple app, but it's also highly customizable. So you can choose which accounts you want to sync into Uncat, meaning as soon as transactions hit those accounts, like Ask My Accountant or uncategorized expense or uncategorized income, they will automatically come into Uncat. It's a set it and forget it. You don't have to remember, oh, it's the end of the week or the end of the month. I need to sync in accounts or export another spreadsheet. It will just be happening in the background for you essentially till the end of time. As long as that client sticks with you and stays in business, we will keep syncing transactions. We'll go back in time as far as you want us to. So it goes back 3 months by default. But if you have a new client and their books are a bit of a mess, that happens, then we do a lot of cleanups. So as we see firms adding clients, sometimes they'll need to go back to the beginning of the year, beginning of last year, maybe do some tax restatements. And so it's helpful to be able to pull all those transactions into the Uncat platform, make it easy for the clients to answer those. There's a number of settings here. I'm going to highlight a few. One is notification settings. This is when we let your client know it's time to come into Uncat and make a few updates. And that notification, like Helina already talked about, goes by email and also optionally by text message. And so it's simply going to tell them, you know, dear Brandon, you have $10,000 worth of uncategorized transactions that need your attention. And that's actually a pretty close to average amount of transactions on a monthly basis that a given client will have. The important thing in that message, and we've done some behavioral testing on this, is that for a client, telling them the amount of money that's at stake is meaningful. We used to tell them the number of transactions. That's actually more meaningful on the accountant side, just to understand sort of what's the workload look like. But for the client, they view that and it's like, oh, that's my money. I better go address those questions. It's also very precise. So we've got some nice feedback from accountants on behalf of clients saying like, hey, I really appreciate you being really on top of my books. And it's like, well, I'm looking at your books the same amount I did last year, but the difference is they're getting a weekly notification saying, hey, there's this many transactions and it's these ones specifically that I need answers for. I've already taken care of the rest, and they like that kind of hands-on approach. The dashboard is very customizable for the client, meaning the default is we just want the client to tell us about the transaction. What was it? What was it for? Who was it with? So a description, and that syncs into the description in QuickBooks or Xero or QuickBooks Desktop, whatever you're using as your general ledger platform. And optionally, they can upload a receipt for that transaction or other supporting document. However, if you've got a client that's more sophisticated, they know their chart of accounts, they can tell you what class a transaction should be in. You can just tick this superpower setting, and it gives you the control over which fields from QuickBooks the client should see, which ones they should be able to update, and which ones you want to require. So in this example now, the client is going to be required to not only provide a description, but also to categorize those transactions and provide classes. And all that automatically syncs into QuickBooks as soon as they click save, but it's also going to show up on your dashboard as the accountant so you can review it. And if you have any changes to make, you can do that on your side and then sync it through. Last on client settings is you can invite client users. You can add as many as you like. That's a pretty popular question. Some clients are pretty easy. They just have a founder or a couple owners. Some are more complex. They might have 10, 20 people out, each with their own individual credit cards, spending money. And so you need information back possibly from all of them. So here you can invite them as client users. And if you want to, you can even assign them to see transactions that originated from specific places. Like this user is being assigned to only see uncategorized expenses that came from their credit card. That way, they're not going to be burdened by a bunch of transactions that they've never seen, have no background with whatsoever, but they should be accountable for what they spent. So they're going to be assigned that. You can also optionally assign them to see particular accounts. So some firms, many firms actually that we've seen, will create accounts for individuals. So to say like uncategorized Brandon and uncategorized Alex, and each of us see only our own uncategorized that have been assigned in QuickBooks. This is where you add a phone number, right? So you can see this user has a phone number. This is where you would add a phone number for that user. That way they can receive text messages. The other cool unlock that putting their phone number in provides is that they can automatically text in receipts to Uncat, and we will process those receipts and then match them to transactions in QuickBooks. Those don't have to be uncategorized transactions. Those can be receipts for any transaction under the sun. I'll show you that feature in a second. Okay, so those are client settings. Overall settings, it'll show you a list of the clients you've connected, and then it'll show you a list of your colleagues. So if you're watching this webinar thinking, well, I've got 5 or 6 people in the firm that would need to manage their clients all through this Uncat platform, how do I do that? Easy, you just add them here. How much is that going to cost me? No additional fee. So Uncat, unlimited transactions, unlimited users. We just bill $9 a month times the number of clients that you've connected to the platform. So think client files, easy math. The last thing here I'll mention, because it's popular, you can upload the logo of your firm, change the color of the app. So essentially match your branding. So when your client shows up, they see your name, your logo, your color, they know they're in the right place. Okay, go into the dashboard and I'll show you 3 quick things as part of this demo. If we look at that same client, which I affectionately named Tiger because everything's got to have a cat theme, here's the transaction dashboard. And you can see the ones highlighted in yellow, meaning the client has responded. Yay, we herded the cats and we got some information back and we just solved several of the items on the checklist that we went over at the top of the webinar. So based on their description, hopefully it's enough information to say, great, now I know exactly where to categorize that. And if I want to, I can select a class. And I can expand the transaction and even choose a customer, a location, billable. And I will give a shout out. Helina's in Canada. She helped out a lot with this. Tax. So many firms here in the US are like, tax, never even touched that field before, not important. And it's basically a toggle switch for most firms in the US. However, for our customers in Canada and UK and Australia and New Zealand and lots of other jurisdictions, tax is key. You've got to have it in there for pretty much every transaction. So it will become a little drop-down menu. You can choose the various tax rates, inclusive or exclusive. It respects that. Turns out tax is very complicated in general ledger systems, but it's now well supported in Uncat. So we're really happy to provide that. If the client has not responded in a thorough manner, like you put a transaction in that's at a restaurant and they say food, and you're like, I had a feeling. The question really is, who did you eat with? What was the purpose of the meal? You can always ask additional questions. Just tap a message here and it will show up for the client back on their dashboard and say, I need a little bit more from you aside from just food. Here is where you will see if they've uploaded any attachments. You can also upload your own, of course. Those will sync through onto the transaction in QuickBooks. So anyway, as you make updates here, as soon as you click Save Updates at the bottom, everything syncs into QuickBooks to the respective fields. And when they're categorized, you're good. You're all done. The 2 other tabs we have here, this is the Request tab. This is a place where you can ask for things like vendor information, right? W-9s, bank statements, board meeting minutes, other things that you might otherwise send an email to the client for. You can kind of consolidate those requests inside Uncat since they're coming in here to address uncategorized transactions anyway. You can also do recurring requests. If you know you need the same thing on the 7th of every month, just kind of set it and forget it and we'll ask every month. And then the thing we added most recently, which is to say this year, is receipts. We've supported receipts on uncategorized transactions for 5 years. So on the one hand, nothing new to see here. The big new thing though is that now these could be receipts for any transaction. They don't have to be uncategorized. So this is a place where your clients can come, click upload receipt, and they can email a receipt in to their unique Uncat email address. They can text message a receipt in, which is a pretty popular way to do it, or they can just drag and drop or select receipts from their computer. When they come into Uncat, we then extract the data in those receipts. So think vendor and amount and date. And when you can match all 3 or even 2 out of 3 of those, you're well on your way to finding the match in terms of transactions in QuickBooks. And when we find that match, we'll highlight it for you. So this one is like match found. And I can say, okay, great. We want to match it this transaction. I do. And then click match, and it will then attach itself to that transaction in QuickBooks. If it doesn't find a match, it's still here in Uncat. You can review it anytime. Maybe it's not been reconciled from the bank feed yet. It's fine. This is a nice holding bin for it. And as it comes into QuickBooks, it will identify the match. Or maybe this was a cash payment, in which case it's not going to make it in from the bank feed. And so you can actually publish a new transaction and make it an expense or a bill and create that from scratch. So really the use case for the receipts tab was the same as Uncat, which is to say, the firms that are our customers were like, hey, you know how you prevented us from having to go back and forth with a spreadsheet? Can you also save us from receiving 30 attachments in my inbox that I then have to go manually attach to write transactions in QuickBooks? We're like, yeah, I think we can help. So that's why we added this receipts tab. So that's Uncat in a nutshell. Obviously, if you have any questions for me on Uncat, if you got questions for Alex and his team on ApprovalMax, or for Helina about anything at all, any troubleshooting for QuickBooks, now's the time. I'm just kidding. That's probably not actually untrue. You could probably answer almost everything about it. I won't put you on that. I won't put you on the spot. But yeah, if there are any questions that any of you have that I can help with, or any of us can help with, feel free to jump in on the chat or the Q&A, and we'll do it since we got a few minutes here before the top of the hour. But in any case, thank you all for coming and spending time with us and enduring one accounting joke and several cat puns. It's much appreciated.
I didn't get to share my accounting joke. I should
Oh, you got one? Okay, yeah, hit it.
I always say to my team, welcome to the accounting department where everybody counts.
I like it.
Good one.
And then you know instantly whether they're going to be kind of like a good team member, or it's like, uh-oh.
If they don't laugh at my jokes,
yeah, it's not going to work out.
I'm joking.
Yeah,
very exciting to see all the progress here. So, you know, with ApprovalMax getting the receipt capture in there is a newer feature. So that's amazing to have in there. And it was something that I heavily requested, and then it was nice to see tax and the non-Uncat related transaction coverage there, Brandon, on your end with Uncat, with the ability to send out requests for non-transaction related things, but also just for transactions that, you know, for people to be able to send bills and receipts in that were not yet in the book. So really appreciate both of you and your dedication to my random requests here.
Yeah, for sure. Keep them coming.
One sneak peek to a very new thing. It's not yet available within ApprovalMax, but will be very, very soon. For those of you who are managing budgets in QBO, we are now in a final stage of adding budget checking into ApprovalMax. So if you're raising purchase orders, bills, or expenses in real time, you will be able to see these budgets straight from your ApprovalMax account.
That's awesome.
Nice.
I think that may have been another one of my requests. And the reason being because, you know, if you've got like, especially for not-for-profits, if you have leaders who have budgets that they're managing to, or if you're in construction and you've got a budget for your construction project, to be able to see how you're tracking to that budget in ApprovalMax without having to like go out and get some answers from the accounting team or go pull a report and, you know, not know if everything has been pushed yet. At least you can see within the tool itself how they're tracking. So I think that's
yeah,
pretty cool.
It's been #1 requested feature, I think, for the last 2 years already. Finally, we are there.
That's awesome.
Love it. It's exciting.
I guess last chances for questions here. Anybody have any questions?
There was one question in the chat. You mentioned you put these videos on YouTube as well, right? It's going to be on YouTube, right?
Yes. Yeah. Once we have the video, we'll circulate it, but we'll typically circulate it by way of a link that will take you to YouTube so you can view it and share it from there.
Okay. And we've got a quiet crew this afternoon. Usually there's lots of questions. Any other questions from the audience here? Happy, we've got a couple minutes left if anybody has anything.
Hopefully that just means we covered a lot of interesting information and preempted some of the questions, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Fingers
Hopefully,
crossed.
hopefully you got some tips to like make your lives easier, because I don't know, I call myself a lazy accountant, because if I can automate everything or as much as I can, then it makes it easier for myself and my team. So hopefully those tips were helpful for you and your companies, and to automate your processes. So.
I like that. I like that it's ironic too, since any of us that know you would never use that as an adjective. Inefficient, right? But yes, that's maybe the goal.
I like effective. I like effective better than efficient, but
that's true, right? You don't want to be efficient but not getting work done. Effective and efficient. That's a good combo.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, well, it looks like we did our job here. There's no questions, so I'll leave it to Brandon to close us up here today.
Sold. Yeah. Thank you, Helina. Thanks, Alex, and the whole team at ApprovalMax. Natalie's on with us as well. Jason for setting it up on the Uncat side. So thank you all for coming. We'll circulate this to everybody, and feel free to reach us. Obviously, ApprovalMax.com, Uncat.com. If you guys have any questions, we're here to help. Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
You got it.